Okay. Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode. The title that has arose is Naturally Simple Decency is the Purifier of Complex Suffering. And in the subtitle, I've written Attitude-Based Backup Systems for Humanity. Pretty much, I gotta be more straightforward about what I'm doing in these lectures, and pretty much I'm trying to solve a collective problem. Right? If we saw dimensions to the human being, right, we would see that there are individual dimensions, personal dimensions, and there are impersonal dimensions. Now, when I was looking at this world of ours, I reached this conclusion where I'm like, okay, what's the simplest attitude I can have to this world? That means, imagine someone wants to comprehend, a hierarchy or a spectrum of angles to something that is happening. So they start off being like, okay, what are the simple truths to the moment, and what are the complex truths or complex illusions to the moment, right? So we gotta, in some sense, have the capability that even though we think reality or truth or our beliefs have to be like a solid snapshot for this world, but in reality, it's a changing system, and for this changing system, there's multiple angles. This would be one of my personal greatest achievements, if I can make a species that is enchanted by language to just think that it's a singular phenomenon, to realize that it has been multidimensional from the beginning. What I'm trying to do here is suggest that we're multidimensional beings, and how to go about it in finding some sort of strategy or approach to the future of everybody, right? So from the simplistic view, where I'm like, okay, what's the simple angle? Bunch of creatures on a rock in the middle of nowhere, long journey in the making, an evolutionary journey, and at the same time we have no clue what is in store for us in the future. We may have inklings, but we don't know until it happens. So in the subtitle, when I say attitude-based backup systems for humanity, I am realizing that the human being is a multidimensional entity in regards to the different dimensions it can consider and have access to. And so its attitude suggests it's the quality of its expression, and the quality of our expression suggests the quality of our future. So in other words, what attitude does the species need to have to function in a way where the future generations are like, they feel their ancestors were smart enough to take care of their blind spots, or to do as much as possible? We're living in an era where it's important to become, or to realize that you are a member of a species, regardless of your past, regardless of who you think you are. It's as if it's one of the greatest facts of life that we're not here alone, and the moment you're in a universe that you're not alone in, it's another suggestion that there's things that can be done. Because if somebody was opened their eyes through a solipsistic perception, they were just like, man, this is my universe, I'm the god of what I see, then it's as if, there is a loneliness to godhood. There is a loneliness of being able to see your creation, but not technically be it if you're seeing it. What I mean by that is that when intelligence finds itself alone, a backup system for it is to create a world that it doesn't have control over. Now, what is the key point about decency? So I'm going to bring out the notepad and, open up the title. I feel if, I'm just going to say this, I feel if every human being that's alive and will go on being alive, or is to come in the future, all the coming soon humans, if every person at least gives like 10% of their lifetime to contributing to advancing civilization, something incredible will happen. So on to the notepad. The notepad of mystical, cyber thought. Sometimes I have this feeling, just like, we look at yogis, ancient yogis, and, we have books like Upanishads, and we're like, wow, what sort of mystical beings walk this earth? I feel in the future, in cyberspace, I might be like the Rishi Vyasa of cyberspace, one of those, early bird, people who was talking about freedom beyond all dimensions, regardless of wherever you are, and the greatest freedom is not to escape. People think that's freedom, right? I mean, sure, it's a temporary freedom, but you see, if you want to escape from something physical, that's easy. But if you want to escape from a psychological condition, or you want to escape or go beyond, the walls that your mind has built, then that requires an ability to zoom out of yourself and begin witnessing how yourself is an integrative part of how this universal sector functions. And decency is the secret. This is something where, on some point I've seen enough karmic trials and tribulations to know it, but at the same time, it's like the most powerful force. And I'm going to explain why decency has a huge role, and how honestly, it is the cure to all mental health. All mental illness is because some part of the psychological identity has repeated indecently to itself too long, right? There's many attitudes and approaches, just like I say this often in the talks, just like a person can look at an object from a different angles, like whoever you are right now, look at something in front of you, like let's say there's a pen in front of you, hold that pen in your hand and like turn it around, look at it from different angles. Similarly, the same thing can happen to the life process, and some of the, multidimensional angles that the human being can become aware of itself, it's not human. So there is a dehumanized and humanized discretion to be made as we walk into the future, not just as a human being, but as an energetic being. So the notepad's open, let me go through this. I could have written natural, simple decency, but, I'm saying to naturally be simply decent. So, natural, simple decency, what does that mean? That's a question. Then, what do we mean by purification? And then, what do we mean by the purification of complex suffering? So, on some level, we have a human being and this human being is on a journey. A journey is another way of saying, you know, a game or event to overcome challenges. So we're this human being in a world, and then there is obstacles. Now, based on each obstacle, so I think people, you know, sure, the free will is choosing to be itself, choosing to be a sense of self and ego, an egoic structure. But at the same time, the boundaries, the limits of our sense of self is based on the edge of our knowledge and, in some sense, what we have overcome, or what we can overcome, or what we haven't overcome yet. So right now, I'm a physical being, right, in this world, and something that I still haven't overcome is what's gonna happen after my physical existence, right? It's as if like survival is the game and is the challenge, you know? And of course, after we have physical survival, we have psychological survival. But what psychological survival is it's pretty much like a being like, okay, what am I being? And then it's as if like, what is the expression of this, or what is the ability of what I'm being, right? In this journey of life, the character in the story starts to have relationships, and these are like experiential memory sequence accumulation, right? Like me giving this lecture right now, it's like a memory is being created and a memory will be stored of this. And so the expression of the ability, it just, the mind doesn't ignore it. I'll start from the complex suffering. The Buddha had a view on suffering. But I would say, okay, let me see if I could write it down. We have death, old age, disease, okay, let me say it this way. Buddha stepped out of a palace and his backstory, and pretty much he looked at people and he realized that, you know, the empire, or, you know, his father had, you know, covered his eyes to that actual goings on of the world. And so the Buddha sees people dying, suffering, sick, you know, agitated, psychologically disturbed. And he sees the difficulty of actual living, right? But then he, unlike many people at the time, chooses to engage his mind, and the Buddha can be known to be one of the greatest problem solvers in history. And so when he sees this suffering, this is where the idea of the Four Noble Truths come in, right? So I would say, I'll read it for the people here. First noble truth: all life is suffering. Dukkha, you know, there is suffering. For example, birth, trauma, illness, old age, fear of death, separation from what one loves. Now, the Buddha says, okay, so first noble truth, there's tons of suffering around, and now the second noble truth is, what is the cause of suffering? And the Buddha says the cause of suffering is desire. You know, the word in called tanha, but the cause of suffering is desire, and there is suffering because of desire. So this is the second noble truth. First noble truth, all life is suffering. Second noble truth, the cause of suffering is desire. Now the third noble truth is, the way to stop suffering is to stop desire. So the Buddha is pretty much saying the end of suffering comes with the end of desire. It's the end of attachment. Now keep this in mind. We have to be attached to the value of ourself in order to exist and survive in this realm. But the Buddha's like, you know, there's a suffering that comes from the attachment to life, and so the suffering is the endless desire, you know, the desire for the more, that's kind of like a never-ending thirst. And so in the third noble truth, the Buddha is saying, you stop the desire, you know, and then the suffering stops. The way to stop suffering is to stop desire. Now the fourth noble truth is to remove desire, and the Buddha, this is where he like pitches in you know, his own strategy, and he says to remove desire, follow the noble eightfold path. And he's pretty much saying there is a way to let go of desire, and this is considered the quiet mind. Okay? And I think another way of saying, instead of quiet mind, it's the mind that is calm enough to see reality as it is. I think that this is the value of decency. You know, decency is what you feel when you step out of the linguistic simulation for a moment. You know, another way I could have said, you know, the title of this episode is like Decency Restoration is a backup system to suffering. Pretty much, it's like, think of it this way. Let's say you have a company, you're a company owner, and you have employees, and on some level deep down you know that the quality of the result of the company is dependent on the quality of work. And so if we were to think about it as if, like, let's say a team of advanced human beings wanted to build an advanced civilization, it's as if what is the quality of every human life? And I would say natural decency, as natural simple decency is one of the highest qualities of a state of mind. And you know what decency is? Decency is the similar feeling you get when you're in a museum and you don't have to touch what you see. Like if, let's say you take, a bunch of kids from a classroom to a museum, right? And let's say there's a Zen monk or a yogi or a Buddhist figure, like just watching, like the teacher is a Buddhist, okay? And so the teacher is watching and noticing that those people who touched the stuff, the content of the museum, it's as if they are poetically souls that are attached. They're attached to their desire, as if they haven't realized that the mind projects many images, but to act upon it is a side image-oriented choice. So how somebody engages the content of their mind suggests how attached and free they are. An argument can be even made about myself, that I'm someone who might desire to know what is going on in the world has created the suffering. I shouldn't say suffering, but it's created a sort of scenario for me where it's as if no thought is enough. That means even if I give 10,000 talks, it's like, or even 100,000 talks, it's like it's not. It doesn't matter, the nature of reality is that not only does it just go forth, but it gives our performance the meaning it deserves. You see, that's the power of decency, And let's say somebody pets a cat, or a dog, right? Or let's say somebody's walking by and, they see trash, like a ridiculous amount of trash on the ground, right? It's as if cleaning up that, let's say, a park or something is equivalent to, I would say, a superior form of decency where the person in their mind, they're like, what does my civilization deserve? What does my species deserve? Right? And you're like, the species deserves the highest quality it can fathom, or it has the potential for. It's as if we have moved past the era of being good and bad people, and now we're wondering how advanced we can be. That's the beauty of 2022 and onwards. The era of advanced communications we are. Sorry guys, this was on mute and I was just, just marching forth here. I'll recap. Pretty much I was saying I went back to the idea of complex suffering just in case if this was missed, I'm losing track of, when it was muted. But anyways, so there's suffering in this world. The Buddha was like, oh my god, suffering, and so he in some sense considered the Four Noble Truths. The Four Noble Truths I explained to the audience, right? Pretty much life is suffering, the cause of suffering is desire, the solution to, life is suffering. The suffering is because of our attachment to desire, and so to stop desire, to become detached, is the solution, and the solution to becoming enlightened, or the solution to stopping desire is called the Eightfold Path. And so to explain the Eightfold Path simply, imagine like a wheel of like a boat, imagine like a pirate ship, and imagine I forget the term. Just the wheel of the ship, right? And so now imagine like 8, what's the term, pillars or pegs through it, and so there's 8, pretty much 8 views. So it's like the strategy to the suffering and the circumstances of reality. The Buddha considered the Eightfold Path and the tactics to it, right? So we have the right the first wheel, the first dimension, first tactic being right understanding. Develop a deep understanding of the Four Noble Truths. That means get the right view, get a sense of what's going on here. The second tactic is right purpose. Live a life of selflessness, not selfishness, love, and non-violence. Right, so that means our purpose is to see the advancement of what there is here. Destruction is unnecessary, and when something's unnecessary, we do it. That's stupidity, And there are some unnecessary things that we do that are very difficult to not do, but at the same time, right? It's the idea is to have the right purpose, which is to, at least in my universe, it is the advancement of the species. There's no greater game left to play. Okay, I'm just gonna put the picture. So right understanding, right view, I read that. Right purpose, live a life of selflessness, love, and non-violence. Okay, I read that. Then we have right speech. Be careful and truthful in what you say. Do not lie or gossip. And decency is a measure of this, is the filter for this. Then we have right action. Do not kill, steal, or lie. Be honest. That means it's like we want to, step out of the simulation of suffering. If we're not honest, that's dishonesty is its own suffering, what does honesty really mean? If somebody was like Mr. Within, there's so many different human beings, truth can be, different in abstract ways. So what's honesty? And honesty is, I would say, the simplest truth of your moment that is being. That means, let's say somebody thinks they're a cool person, like that's not honest. Somebody thinks they're, like a bad person, still not honest. Because in the honesty of, like, to truly be honest, we're actually unknown, intelligent beings. That's the supreme honesty. That's the honesty that those trapped in the linguistic simulation cannot find. The honesty to realize you're simply an unknown event. But in this context, Buddha says, do not kill, steal, or lie, be honest. Because all those stuff is unnecessary. Nature, like when we were in the jungles, everybody was killing each other. Now that we've advanced, like that's the whole point of civilization. When modern men wore hats, they managed to take the conflicts, of the outer realms that were pretty much the savageness of the jungle and convert that into a gentleness of the outer realms, but still the savageness moved into the linguistic simulation. So it's as if, like, rather than people physically fighting, like fights should be taking place like on a language level. That means from a language level it shouldn't descend into physical violence. That means it's like if the species is smart people will find a way, to solve things without being violent, Regardless of how much good and evil there is in this world, good and evil people, my view is that there is 100% a very smart good guy, and there's 100% a very smart bad guy. And what if the good and the bad saw beyond the dualism, which is like the pretty much flickering flame of samsara, right? For how long chaos fights order, order fights chaos, and it's like that's on the causal level, but on the consequence effect level, chaos is met by greater chaos and order is met by greater order. That means it's like, well, if somebody is kind, a greater, kinder being will be part of their karma. If somebody is cruel, a greater cruelty will be part of their karma, right? And it's like all these attributes given, if there is the consideration that we are free, because there is this view that the reason man chose to enter the simulation of the language of life, the stories of life, is because we are for trying to not react to the massive emptiness. Okay, I'll say it this way. Pretty much this is, I should just forget the last sentence and I'll say it again. It's like the species creatures on a rock opened their eyes and they're like, there's nothing here, it's meaningless. They were freaking out, and suddenly the mind had the capability to tell itself a story in the void. This is, to some mystics, this is divinity. How something is moving meaning at all, or where meaning can happen or go, or, in some sense is. Being alive is equivalent to a divine event if divinity is considered as an unknown influencer or a unknown movement in the known world. We are that unknown movement, right? So the search for divinity stops when you realize the mystery of your own eyes, the mystery that is looking out through your eyes. It's a mystery for all of us, and the species hasn't come close to figuring it out, because on some level it's beyond the language threshold. Anyways, I gotta get through the Eightfold Path. So just recap: Four Noble Truths, the solution to, suffering. Life is suffering. The cause of it is desire. To stop desire, we use the Eightfold Path. So, the Eightfold Path: right understanding, right purpose, right speech, right action. These were the ones I read. Now, That's four, so four more. Right way to earn a living. Do not work at a job that causes harm to people or living creatures. Right effort. Promote good actions and prevent evil actions. Right mindfulness. Be aware of but not attached to your emotions, thoughts, and feelings. Right. That means be conscious that you are in the vehicle of the body is inside the vehicle of the mind, and what is within the vehicle of the mind is the relationship of the unknown experiencer with the known reality, known world, known experience. So mindfulness is another way of saying, just like when somebody enters a car and let's say your friend can't drive and you want to drive, instead you can drive. Let's say you're of sound mind. And so it's like when you enter a new vehicle, what do? You adjust your seat in the vehicle before moving. You check the mirrors, right? Back view mirror, side mirrors, you check the seat, and once you are comfortable and stable, then you begin driving, right? So when it comes to a mystical angle of this, it's like you live your life when you are seated in the clarity of your simplest truth of being. That means once you're comfortable existing, then there can come a comfort with additional dimensions of existing. Alright guys, I took my eyes away from the chat section for a moment, and it's like active. So somebody in the chat section says, how to sensitize all our dimensions to become one? The answer is to realize it's starting from one. Somebody else says, a comment, not decency, but honesty is the purifier of complex suffering. The issue is, if you're not decent, you can't be honest. Do you know? That means the honesty exists there out of the decency of the moment, right? Because if you wanted to be indecent, your honesty could be actually a lie deep down, But honesty and decency, they are to me like, two sides of a coin. Honesty is the state of mind, decency is the activities that arise from there, right? But the issue with honesty is that human beings are conditionally trying to be honest, right? That means not everybody is being in the present of simplicity. Let's say if somebody believes that, like truly believes that, the extinction doesn't deserve continuity, then they could be honest. Like you can have an honest evil person. That's not an honesty is not enough to get rid of that complex suffering, right? That means you could have somebody honestly, like the Joker in the Batman movie, wanting to like see the world burn, right? That dude was being honest even though it was indecent what he was doing. Decency means we care for intelligent unknown variables in the realm. Indecency means we treat the outer realms as if it's just our mind. So imagine you talk to person A and person B meet for the first time, and then person A gets a view of person B that person B is bad, right? But that's just like, and the person A could be like, honestly, this is how I see this person B. But the decency is to not treat that person as our own resolve, right? That's the like that. This is why the species is not. I could say like this is like a measure, a gauge for, is the species ready for, let's say, extraterrestrial contact? If aliens were going to come down to Earth, are we capable to just put on pause the world that we have believed in and to look at on the unknownness of reality and establish experientially new results, right? Honesty that is conditional. Think of it this way: decency is more of an emotional being, maybe, and honesty is more like a conceptual. Do you know what I'm saying? Because if we were truly honest, everybody should be freaking out, right? That means it's like total honesty of a species with itself in an unknown world. That is like, not everybody can handle that. For me personally, when I went beyond the scope of how my mind moves through language, I came to the realization that there's dehumanized states. Do you know what I'm saying, guys? This is something where, I don't know, it's like, what the hell, it's like the philosophers of this world need to start roaring like lions that have slept too long, right? The mysteries of our mind it's as if there's mysteries in a bunch of dimensions, not just one, right? So, this picture I've put in the screen, we have pretty much, think of it this way. Let's say you wanted to be a Jedi and there were like 8 codes of the Jedi. It's pretty much like, I think Yoda is kind of like, a green Buddha. Like those green Buddha statues they sell in China is pretty much Yoda, you know what I mean? So let's say you as a human being, like the Buddha was right beside you and the Buddha told you this and you were like, all right, Buddha, let me try it out. And you were like, okay, right view. And then check this out, guys. The right view is that unknown first before known first, right? The right mindfulness, that means pretty much realizing the unknown in these 8 dimensions brings forth, I feel, the unlocking of these dimensions. That means, let's say a human being suddenly has the right concentration or the right effort, and it's as if suddenly, like an Xbox achievement unlocked at the corner of the screen, the soul releases its ability. That means it's like the only reason Buddha is saying right mind, right concentration, right effort, right livelihood, right action, right speech, right intention, right view, is because he wants to bring the intelligence of the organism, the intelligence that we are, to a point where it can trust itself. And the greatest abilities, the mysteries of the realm, the secrets of hidden worlds is revealed when we can trust the unknown, trust the unseen. Do you know what that means, dear listeners? That means mysticism just got really unreal. And it's like the nature of the meaning of the edges of this world. That means it's like, how is, like, on some level, I'm sitting here trying to be a polite podcaster, but like sometimes I have this emotion, like this rage, right? And this rage is not directed at a person, it's directed at a circumstance of where I'm like, why? Like, how bizarre that we are on a rock hovering in the middle of nowhere. The edges of this world we're considering, we're naming, is unknown. We are in an unknown place, and we don't know what we are. It doesn't get like more like to exist is like mysticism itself. Is like the ultimate realization of mysticism. I've realized that if a person dies, if we're temporary physical beings, that kind of implies that what we are is not going to linger. So if I identify as my body at some point in the journey through the space-time continuum, the body's not going to exist in the way it's existing, right? And so then at the same time, the mind perhaps is going to become contentless for the first time, or find an experiential certainty in the uncertainty of in the unknown of the manifest. So it's as if it's like the person's like, wait a minute, I'm inside this vehicle, which is the body and mind and all that comes with it, right? And so at some point I'm going to step out of this vehicle, and then who am I going to be? That means it's as if, like, right, to be alive as a human being is like you're in transit. You're in transit in a biological vehicle in a physical world. but also psychologically you're, sitting in the, train station of your own mind, or sitting on the moving train of your own mind. So at some point, every human being is going to acknowledge the unknown. This is the ultimate wisdom. Every person will eventually, and we can, I understand New Age thought. I understand sort of, the fiction of wanting to believe in truth, right? When truth is actually a conscious experiential response. It's so easy to put a box over our head and be like, okay, this small world I see is enough. Why should I care? It's like, if we were a species of turtles right now in civilization, most people have just hid into their own shells, and they're like, this is truth enough, not realizing that an event is taking place. It's like, even though I say it's a vehicle, it doesn't mean you just sit in the vehicle. The purpose of the vehicle is more like, rather than a car that can only take you to a location, it's like a giant robot. You know what it is? It's like our ego, our psychology. Like, to take that in, like, imagine, like, we are using giant robots to build an advanced civilization. So we're using our minds like giant robots to build an advanced civilization. If people are like, Mr. Within, what's your view? It's like pretty much that, right? We're using what we have to build something. And so the idea of responsibility, let me tell you what is so beautiful about the concept of responsibility. It's all about the excellence of how far we can go. What that means is, let's say you become responsible for your inner realm. So thank you for the kind words, guys. In the chat section, I don't know how to say your name. Let's say Reese. In the chat section, the reason I'm asking you, I typed, "Are you a Taoist?" is simply because I am post-Taoism. Right? I am saying, like, so many people renounce the world to get enlightened, but it doesn't make sense. Right? Because if you were enlightened, you wouldn't be thinking about getting enlightened. Right? So I am under this assumption that the most advanced beings are building the most advanced world. I am walking in that sort of universe. So I'll say this, guys. If somebody is like a pure Taoist listening to my talk, it's like, as a Taoist, your truth is not in language. I'm gonna play my favorite song. me see if I could take this up a notch. I'm getting distracted myself. So guys, keep in mind, in this episode, the mystical wisdom in the Upanishads says the seer of the seen is unseen, right? So, you know, it's like people can have this view that I'm somebody stuck in my own language world, but at the same time, I'm telling you, the realization that you're not language doesn't make you bothered, right? That means the fact that a person has an opinion on reality is a suggestion that their mind is not empty. It's not like from a Taoistic perception, it's like it's inaction through inaction. That means to have a comment is like, you know, an action, right? So I am telling you, the Taoist perspective renders you as an observer. And when you're an observer, it's like that the truth station, that I am saying we gotta use the observer. But anyways, you know, just like a symphony, there are many instruments, you know. To the human collective psyche, there's many parts. I'm gonna go back to the notepad. What I'm trying to say is, I am not, you know, it's like I guess maybe, you know, from a Taoistic perspective, somebody wants to contribute to an advanced civilization, just be a peaceful being, right? If you don't want to touch anything in manifestation. Because in yogic thought, they were extreme renunciates. They were like, don't get involved in anything in the manifest reality, or don't get attached to anything inside a simulation, because then you'd be caught in the simulation. But I'm that person, and from this yogic perspective, where I'm like, okay, I am going to war with the simulation, but not a physical war, you know. Pretty much what my approach was like, how can I get a species to become the most advanced force in the universal sector. It's as if, in what sort of a future advanced civilization will my future self be recruiting pilots for interstellar travel? You see, the mind can move in many ways. My whole attitude is like, okay, let's find anybody who has experientially attained a sort of enlightening freedom from the meaning that reality has to have to be true, you know? And so it's as if I am like, pretty much what it is these talks are eventually leading there, where I'm scouting for the most advanced beings and trying to see what the most advanced team and teams of the human species can develop. That's it. That whole project is like, you know, the meaning behind School of Athens 2.0, you know, which is the name of the Discord server. So I'll just bring a new page, and I shared with the viewers Buddha's strategy, right, to complex suffering. Now I'm gonna kind of share some of my own stuff. So let's say for the point of this episode, decency is honesty of action. So we are a player in the game of civilization. There is an individual level. Decency is honesty of action, but also leads to honesty. So, the individual, I'm like, okay, we have individuals on this planet. Let's see what the most advanced individual would be like. Then I'm like, okay, we have groups, collectives, right? Excuse the handwriting, guys. This is a notepad and I'm just tired. So we want to see the most advanced groups merging. And ultimately, we want the most advanced planet, right? Most advanced planet in the universal sector. Now, what is, let's say, the common denominator? That means so we want to have an advanced planet, right? Planetary life, right? So we need to have an advanced collective life, and we definitely need to have an advanced individual life. Now, the clue is that having an advanced individual life doesn't mean like you're like, Tony Stark from Iron Man with like a Jarvis of your own. I mean, that would be incredible, but I'm saying like we're not there yet. So the most advanced individual state is like you went from a human being to an honest being. And this honesty means not fearing the simplicity of life, how simple it can get, because that could be overwhelming as well, right? Like this is where nihilists freak out, because when they try to simplify everything to nothing, then nothing is looking at nothing. So it's as if, how can nothing even be here, right? Nihilism is like is a proof of divinity, right? Because what else can be seeing nothing? It's like, how can nothing see nothing? Statement false, so it means something has to be aware of nothing, right? So from a nihilistic perspective, the cosmos cannot be empty. Why? Because we're here, So to have an advanced individuals, we need the most advanced vision, right? The most advanced vision. So let's say, you're a person, you've built a team, and people in the team are like, okay, what now? What do we do now? Right? So the approach is, okay, the moment a collective emerges, now the collective has a vision. So I'm trying to find that magnificent, future-saving story, right? That the individual can opt into, collectives and institutions can opt into, and eventually it's like the planetary can move beyond, right? The planetary expression, right? Because on some level, like, we can't ignore how we are parts of the planet that are moving. that can control our movement. So we need to have an advanced vision. So what would be the most common denominator thing? And I realized an advanced civilization. This is Mr. Within's gift. This vision in history for human beings to be motivated by trying to fathom not one step ahead. It's like how adorable, not two steps ahead. Oh my God, such adorableness. But as far as possible, because we are not afraid of infinity, whether it's discontinuity or continuity. That means it's like the vision follows an infinite natural continuity as long as we can. And if unnatural dimensions become excessive, we use nature to modify. That means there should be something in all schools, or let's say schools of technology, that the technology is a service to the realm. On some level, these Mr. Within talks feel like, universal community service. So what I'm trying to say is we need an advanced vision. Now, the most advanced vision is a vision that is not a snapshot photo, but is more like the greatest film we can act in while we're alive. And I realize this is where every person's mind and their own inner realm suddenly becomes necessary. You see, the mind is a problem-solving sort of machine creature, So we exist on some level to solve the problems that enable our continuity, and not just individual survival but collective survival, and the smartest collective survival is finding a greater, like a hyper collective survival, right? That means if you're a human being that just thinks you're a human being, well, of course you're going to freak out here. But if you think of you're a human being, part of a human species that in the future will have an interstellar presence, do you know what I'm saying? That means we're not just the human Earth that is now, just like our ancestors didn't know what kind of world they lived in. Right now, we human beings think we know the world, but we, based on how the future world will see it, in some sense, don't know the world we're living in. And what that means is the potential. So every person before, let's say, Edison invented the light bulb was like looking at candles, right? Nobody knew like light bulbs were possible, right? And it's as if, let's say, what's his name? Edison had no idea that cyberspace would be possible. Like, that's what he couldn't see. So right now, regardless of how far we see, there is truths about how reality will happen that we can't see, right? Decency is the rite of passage. It's pretty much how the intuition, I would say poetically, how divinity, in the intuition transparently discovers the meaning. So if somebody was like, Mr. Within, you're going to talk on decency, what's the point? The point is that the attitude of the species shifts with a second nature assumption on decency. That means if you want to build paradise on Earth, it would be equivalent to first having everybody behave like they're in paradise. And when I say paradise, I am not saying just a religious context, but the most advanced possibility of the species. That means if the species was like a person, we're like, how what would be the greatest movement of this person, So the decency is like, the backbone of civilization. It's pretty much like if you're indecent, it's like the jungle is for you. But civilization was a way of bypassing the unnecessary energy exertions in the forest towards mental clarity. You know, what civilization is the first sign of a species waking up beyond its ecosystem. And decency, I would say, purifies the complex suffering by the person reverting back to a world they can trust. Because indecent actions, they arise from distrust. I'm telling you, the cruelest things that happen in this world is because the source of that cruelty distrusts the world it's in, so it can be violent to it. You know, like that's one of the global challenges. How can we get 8 billion creatures to trust each other to build the most advanced thing ever, you know? What if there is an advanced world waiting for us to discover? What if there is an advanced life waiting for us to, you know, to discover it? And all of it is before we die. We understand the privilege of living, the privilege of accessing worldhood. In many of the talks I've said that the greatest argument on this planet will come to the idea of the advanced civilization. It's the greatest argument. That means every institution that chooses to grow right now, so many businesses are trying to grow, not realizing that we've reached a time, and this is really, I would say poetically, at least one step towards capitalistic salvation, or the salvation of capitalism. To the void that has allowed for there to be anything at all to discover the advanced dimensions of our life. You know, it's as if we followed spiritual traditions, you know, until we reached a point where we're like, we are living now, right? That means a person should study, let's say, ancient history, but at the same time don't get defined by it, because you are the eyes of now. Okay. So, in relation to the chat conversation that's happening, I'll say it this way, to fellow Reese in the chat section. I'll say it this way. Listen, there are 8 billion inner realms, there is one outer realm. If we use the analogy that we're inside a multiplayer online game, behind their eyes every person could feel their freedom, they could feel their truth, love, la-di-da, so you can do that. In your inner realms you can act like you're a god that has never gone anywhere, sure. But in the outer realm, realms. This is where in the public server of how reality is happening, we don't ignore how we're being human just because we feel truth is beyond human. You see, it's the idea is that if you truly had understood oneness, then duality would not be a problem for you. But if somebody's like, oneness is me not seeing duality or ignoring it, that's wrong. That's like, I would say, a lesser form of mysticism, right? It's as if you're still in an act. There is no act. The true honesty is before you have any thought, what is there? And it's unknown. That means this is the ultimate conclusion. You realize you're an unknown being, and all the stories of peace and nirvana, you suddenly see what they were pointing to. That means if somebody was enlightened, they would have no concept of enlightenment. They wouldn't need to have a concept of enlightenment. And because we have refused to see the advancement of our being, our nature, our ability, we entertain language simulations. You see, there is no right and wrong. To think that, everything is oneness means there never was anybody there. So any opinion is an attachment. It's fine, a person can choose, just like how we have a life in the body, we also have a life as space. And sure, a person can choose to become their whole moment of being, but you eventually realize there's a reason you are physically existing. Regardless of whatever inner conclusion you have, it's as if there is a purpose to the outer realms that is not just based on the inner realms. It is its own purpose. It's like we're not, like if we were honest, we're not gods here. Anybody who thinks they're a god, it's as if you have, forgotten that before you knew there was something moving here. So, the ultimate view is we gotta build an advanced civilization just to see what it would look like. That's one of my, one of the greatest gifts I could have is just to see the architecture or the blueprints to how an advanced civilization looks like. I'm strangely, when I give these talks, I have this feeling that if I had past lives, I'd probably experienced various types of civilizations. That means let's give an egotistic kind of, I'll give my, I'll play with an ego right now. And I'll say, playfully that, sometimes I'm like, man, what if I was this being going from, universal sector to universal sector to, when species were ready to advance civilization. Imagine, the whole species is like, wow, what an incredible idea to build and live as if we're in an advanced civilization, to see what the most advanced natural human behavior and the most advanced unnatural human behavior. I shouldn't say unnatural, but it's like I'm pretty much saying in all the dimensions that human intelligence has beamed into, it can advance. That means advancement means the most advanced vision. The most advanced vision is how your whole moment of being, and it's a round circle. I guess I'm that guy in history, fell in love with the idea of how advanced everything can be. If somebody says, I wanted to say something silly, guys, at the end of the day, we're just creatures that are being here. I think this is the simple decency. It's like when people are, let's say two people are having the most complex conversation. The moment they get tired, it's like everything simplifies. You know? And really what it is I'm just saying we need to become conscious and responsible for how we're living as minds, and minds tend to be attracted to visions, and visions are conclusions on the context of the world. You know, guys, something I enjoy, you know, is I'd also encourage everybody to, if they like, they can challenge me, because you know, it's all about where we are putting the conceptual, it's like how we're shaping a concept, you know, in the context that was first an accepted shape. You know, and you know, I thought about it this way. You know, I took a unique approach where I'm like, okay, let's say if right now I was gonna, like, you know, let's say let's say if I wanted to make, like, let's say, it's like if I wanted to cook a meal, I would have this idea that there's, like, for example, people like Gordon Ramsay, right? People who are greater chefs, that they could do it better than me. And so, because of this idea that, wait a minute, anything I do, there could be someone on the planet who is doing it better than me, I thought about it, what if if somebody wanted to build an advanced civilization, in their mind they began to fathom how somebody better would build that advanced civilization. And what I realize is that we put the ending in the beginning, and so the species' life becomes no longer fear, you know? It's as if, like, this might be a bizarre thing to say, but rather than we're alive and then we're gonna die, it's as if we're all dead, but we want to see how we're alive, you know? So it's like pretty much the samurai approach. They put the ending in the beginning, so then they had courage to go on through the let's say, the conceptual domain of honor, right? So I'm thinking, okay, how do I do this for an advanced civilization? For an advanced civilization, its destiny is not death. For an advanced civilization, its destiny is like, okay, so I'm pretty much saying the most advanced way we can build a civilization is by considering that we are the most advanced beings from the beginning, and everything we're doing is like surplus advancement. Right? That means whoever you are right now, you know, this is a kind of enlightening one-liner. You were free before you needed to be free. In the Lotus Sutras, there's a sort of story about Buddha's samadhi beyond this world or whatnot, or just the story about Buddha at the end of his life, where the Buddha suddenly, before he dies, he's like freaking out, right? And his disciples are like, "Why, Buddha? Why now?" And Buddha's gone into a hysteria, something they haven't seen, right? And Buddha suddenly says, it's depicted in the Lotus Sutra, that Buddha says, "I have made a mistake. We have all been enlightened from the beginning," because it's the consideration that before you needed to become enlightened in the world, you were living in an enlightened world. The context is enlightened, so it's instant. So we are instantly being the most advanced intelligence in this universal sector. Now, this advanced intelligence can function through various multiple dimensions. You know, I want to go into a quote tunnel, guys, actually. And pretty much it's on decency. Or decency. Christopher Hitchens says human decency is not derived from religion, it precedes it. If the religion is ideological, argument can be made. If religion is an experiential quest, then it's something else. Kurt von Gut says, love is where you find it. I think it is foolish to go around looking for it, and I think it can be poisonous. I wish that people who are conventionally supposed to love each other would say to each other when they fight, please, a little less love and a little more common decency. Terry Pratchett says, what have I always believed, that on the whole and by and large, if a man lived properly, not according to what any priest said, but according to what seemed decent and honest inside, then it would at the end more or less turn out all right. And you know what it is, guys? Pretty much the species is language worshipping, okay? And the way we're stepping out of it is by coming back to the natural human vision, right? So it's as if, like, before we are any type of human, first let's see how we are the simple human. And that simple human is kind of like planting the flag of decency into your, let's say, a karmic journey. And, you know, to me, there is the force of destruction and creation, but destruction is really boring. That means, like, anybody destroying anything on the planet, like when I say, like, you know, like, let's say the destructive evil is boring, right? Like, it's as if what would, like, the incredible look like rather than the worse. Alright, the next quote is super long. It's from Anton Chekhov, something he wrote called A Life in Letters. Incredible title of the book. He says, from a letter to Nikolai Chekhov, I think it's his brother or something, it says March 1886. So Anton Chekhov, he says, civilized people must, I believe, satisfy the following criteria. They respect human beings as individuals and are therefore always tolerant, gentle, courteous, and amiable. They do not create scenes over a hammer or a mislaid eraser. They do not make you feel they are conferring a great benefit on you when they live with you, and they don't make a scandal when they leave. They have compassion for other people. Besides beggars, cats, their hearts suffer the pain of what is hidden to the naked eye. What a sentence, wow. Their hearts suffer the pain of what is hidden to the naked eye. Wow. This is one of those sentences that should be in, like, you know, the Future's Museum of Language. You know, if I become if the resources find me, I would probably, like, you know, if somebody was like, Mr.Within, what would you do with $1 billion? I would start building giant statues of advanced, you know, future possibilities. Like, imagine, you know, there's old monuments, and the greatest modern monument would be like a stone statue of a giant robot, you know? Okay, anyways, I'll continue with the quote. Kind of sidelined there. So pretty much he's put it in point form. Anton Chekhov, I read the first two, I'm going to read the third. They respect other people's property and therefore pay their debts. Or maybe I read ahead, I don't know. 4, they are not devious and they fear lies as they fear fire. They don't tell lies even in the most trivial matters. To lie to someone is to insult them, and the liar is diminished in the eyes of the person he lies to. Civilized people don't put on airs. They behave in the street as they would at home. They don't show off to impress their juniors. 5th point, he says, they don't run themselves down in order to provoke the sympathy of others. They don't play on other people's heartstrings to be sighed over and cosseted. That sort of thing is just cheap striving for effects. It's vulgar, old hat and false. They are not vain. They don't waste time with the fake jewelry of hobnobbing with celebrities, being permitted to shake the hand of a drunken judical orator. The exaggerated bonhomie of the first person they meet in the salon, being the life and soul of the bar. They regard praises like I am a representative of the press, the sort of thing one only hears from very minor journalists as absurd. If they have done a brass farthing's work, they don't pass it off as if it were 100 rubles while swanking about with their portfolios, and they don't boast of being able to gain admission to places other people aren't allowed in. True talent always sits in the shade, mingles with the crowd, avoids the limelight. As Krylov said, the empty barrel makes more noise than the full one. If they do possess talent, this is the 7th point, if they do possess talent, they value it, they take pride in it, they know they have a responsibility to exert a civilizing influence on others rather than aimlessly hanging out with them, and they are fastidious in their habits. 8th point, they work at developing their aesthetic sensibilities. Civilized people don't simply obey their baser instincts, they require mens sana in corpore sano. They require mens sana in corpore sano, not mens. It's so hilarious. Okay, it means a soul, mind, and a sound body. Mens sana in corpore sano. And the 8th point was the final one. And so on. That's what civilized people are like. Reading Pickwick and learning a speech from Foss by heart is not enough if your aim is to become a truly civilized person and not to sink below the level of your surroundings. Okay, Anton Chekhov has become one of my favorite writers just by reading that quote. There's another quote I'll read. It's from Andrzej Duda, and he says, not everyone is able to show courage, but human decency must be demanded of every person. And now I'm saying advanced human decency needs to be something that is demanded of every person. People are going to be like, how, like, let's say an advanced civilization in the future, people were like, what is the advanced civilization demanding? And the advanced civilization is demanding the most advanced life for the individual. And if the most advanced means freedom, it's like, how can I tell you, we want to be so smart as a species that we get everything right, even though that feels impossible, seems impossible. But let me tell you, if the species cares, that means you can't become a decent person unless you care for something, right? If you care for yourself, you relax, And the idea is that if you are in, let's say, an agitated state of mind, shut down that state of mind really quickly, or if you linger into it, keep it in the inner realms. In an advanced civilization, every moment, every day is a celebration. Literally, the species will celebrate itself into advancement. The advanced civilization is pretty much an infinite celebration. Anyways, guys, thanks for listening so far. Naturally simple decency is the purifier of complex suffering. By wondering about what is our simplest state of being, we give ourselves an ability to understand the complex event. The fear of the world becomes the freedom of the world. Pretty much it's like a bodhisattvic algorithm put into the idea of what it means to be human. That means it's like, let's say somebody is proud, they're proud of their, let's say, family, their nation, and they have like an ego, a categorical ego, you know. It's as if the moment we think about, imagine somebody being proud of their planet. Pretty much the smartest people on the planet it's to be a universal, to live in, to be a universalist is second nature. So you can say, let me see what I can say about the subtitle before I end off. Attitude-based backup systems for humanity. Yeah, our attitude is how we are looking at life through our inner universe first. And what style is how, you know, the person is in the challenge of every moment, you know, becoming the revelation of what they are. That means it's like when we ignore novelty, the past judges us too hard. All ideas will lead to the advanced civilization, you know, and I call it civilization 2.0 because, you know, I have my own strategy, which I'm trying to build a community for and towards, but at the same time, civilization 2.0 is just like what we saw before we took a step forward. That means it's like what the person wondered about the greater possibilities of their self. Then they wondered about the greater possibilities of their species. Then they wondered about the greater possibilities of the universe. If we can trust how advanced the moment is being, advancement also becomes second nature. That means who knows, maybe behind your eyes, you know, you are the freedom that you're searching for. When we go within, on some level, we accept the moment for what it is, regardless of how our body's in it and how subjects and inner content is moving. You just watch how the moment is being, and the moment is being free before the idea of freedom is projected. So, you know, we are like an advanced unknown intelligence knowing itself again. You know, it's a 4.5 billion year old opportunity to see how far we can go in the void that didn't end our meeting, that wasn't accepted as the end of meeting. Guys, thanks for listening. I hope this episode was interesting, and just, you know, find the decency of how we are just being the most advanced intelligence in this universal sector, indivisible, like on Earth, we're the most advanced technology. Until we build outer technology, which is not as advanced as us, but could in some dimensions. Much blessings and namaste. Thank you for listening.